Welcome to the Tales from Travellers podcast, a show that aims to share the unique experiences of expats, travellers, and those who've chosen to make a life abroad. Through our guests' unique experiences, we'll explore the challenges and rewards of adjusting to a new culture, making new connections, pursuing a career, or even raising a family in a different part of the world. Whether you're a seasoned traveller or new to the expat lifestyle, this podcast could be an insightful tool or just a fun piece to distract you while you're making your journey. Today's guest is Alex, a freelance copywriter who left behind a 9-to-5 job to travel throughout East Asia. In this episode, we'll learn about Alex's experiences as a freelance traveller, including how she packs for a long-term travel, navigates different cultures as a solo female traveller, and also balances work and play while on the road. So Alex, first things first, whereabouts are you in the world right now?
So I'm currently in Canggu in Bali.
Going out as a freelance traveller, what was the catalyst? What made you say, right, I'm going for this?
So I wanted to go traveling when I finished uni, because I didn't take a gap year after school, and I did a year abroad at uni. So I actually spent a year studying in Sydney for my third year, and I loved it so much. And I got to do like traveling around Australia when I was there, and I also went to Thailand for a bit with friends from uni. So it sort of sparked the travel bug inside me. And then I went back to Birmingham for my final year, and I was always like, oh, I want to go back to Australia, like I want to travel, like it just sparked that inside me, I think. So my goal when I finished uni was to work for 6 months and then go traveling. But obviously COVID came, so it kind of wiped all my travel plans out. So I ended up basically getting a job in an office, which I did enjoy, and it was a very good experience. But I kind of felt that I was always very unsettled, because in my mind I was always like, I want to go traveling, I want to go traveling. So I basically worked in an office job for 2 years, and then I came to kind of a break in the role that I was in. I'd enjoyed it, but there wasn't really any more progression in the company, and I sort of wanted to expand my skills and progress up. But to do that, I needed to switch companies. So I started looking like for jobs in London, and like actually applying. I was interviewing for jobs. This was last summer. And then I suddenly thought, well, all this money that I've saved since finishing uni, it's literally gone into a bank account called Traveling Savings. And I thought, well, what's the point of me getting a new job and then kind of sitting there thinking, oh, in 6 months' time, a year's time, I do want to go traveling. I thought, just do it now. Like, if I'm at a break now, it's a good time. I've got the money. So I thought, let's just quit my job and go. So yeah, that's kind of what I did. And I didn't plan on freelancing initially. Obviously, I'd been working for ages. I was like, I just want a break. I don't want to work for a bit. So I actually went to Bali as my first stop. I went on my own because my friend that was supposed to go with me before couldn't come because she got a job. And it was like, she basically had just started a new job, and she was like, I can't come with you. But I was like, that's fine. Like, I'm just going to go on my own. So to start, I actually booked a fitness retreat in Bali. So I do CrossFit at home, which I love. And there's a very famous CrossFit in Canggu in Bali called Wanderlust. And I looked on the website and I saw they had a retreat starting on my birthday. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to book it. So I just booked this week-long retreat, which it was such a nice start, because obviously it's kind of, I guess, with like group travel as well, it's nice. You're put with people, like you're on your own, but you're like put with a group of people. They organize like your accommodation, they organize like the activities. Obviously for us, it was a lot of like workouts, gym sessions. We did like surfing, we did hikes, like very fitness like orientated. But I really enjoyed that. So that was the first week. And then after that, it was solo travel. But it wasn't actually a problem, because I think, especially having the retreat as like the first week, it was a very good introduction to the traveling. So it kind of put me with people, and then they were like, oh, we want to visit here, we want to go there. So I then traveled around Bali with them for 3 weeks. So yeah, no working at this time, just enjoying myself, like loving
Taking
life
it as
in
it comes.
Bali. And then the freelance stuff basically came because I unfortunately broke my wrist at CrossFit. So I got repatriated back to the UK and had surgery, which was pretty bad. And obviously quite a break in my travels, unfortunately. I'd only been away for a month and I was like, I'm going to be away for ages, like not coming back. And then everyone was like, oh, you're back already. Um, and then obviously I was sat at home. I was so bored. Like I'm so active. I like doing things all the time. So for me, like having to sit at home like with a cast on and just watch TV because I couldn't do anything. I'd obviously quit my job and I couldn't go out and get a job anyway because I had to rest because of my wrist. And I was like, oh, I'm so bored. And I was like, well, it would be nice to make some money while I've got nothing to do. So I started looking up like freelance opportunities, and basically my job previously, I was a content writer for a marketing agency. So I was writing content for like all different kinds of companies, like B2C, B2B, for like their websites, blogs, social media, and also making like graphics, TikToks, that kind of thing. So I was like, oh, I could do that freelance. And I'd already started building my website when I'd been at work. So I thought, right, let's like get the website up and running, um, and try and get some freelance work. So I was like, I can still type with one hand. So I
It's
initially
taking a little bit longer.
started typing with one hand. And yeah, it did take longer. I was like, but I'll give it a go. Um, and basically, how I initially started doing it was I found a freelance agency.
Mm.
So when I was at home, I was actually working for the agency, which was really good. It was actually through like a family friend connection that I found out about it and contacted them, had an interview. And it's very convenient because like they find the clients and then they like assign them to you. So you don't have to like go hunting for clients or anything. And you can say like what your interests are or like your areas of expertise. So I basically decided that I wanted to specialize in health and fitness writing because I
Yeah.
do think that's kind of what I want to build my career and experience towards. So yeah, I said that, and then they assign you basically relevant jobs, which is really good. So yeah, that's how I started it, and that's what I was doing when I was at home. Yeah,
Wow.
that was a
Yeah,
really long description.
it's a very long but complex story. I think when anyone goes
Yes.
traveling, there's always the hiccups. And you, like a lot
Yeah.
of people I've spoken to, COVID is a thing that put everything on hold, made you
Yeah.
reassess, made you think. And if anything, it kind of helped as
Yeah.
2020, end of 22, 2023 has been a year that a lot of people have just said, you know what, I'm taking the leap, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And obviously, I came across yours through like Instagram and social media, you kind of going, and working abroad. But obviously, you mentioned that you were getting like working to jobs in agencies in London. A lot of people find moving to London, if you're not from London, quite a challenge in itself. Did you not get bitten by the London bug at all and think about just moving and
I
renting in London?
I think I am bitten by the London bug, but unfortunately, when I was at home, I my jobs that I got just didn't. They weren't in London. They were always outside of London. It didn't make sense for me to move to London when I
Yeah,
didn't work in London, and London's very expensive. So I think for my next job, like what I was looking at last summer was jobs in London, and I do kind of still have that urge to live in London. I think a lot of my friends live there, pretty much all of them now, actually. You know, they're
yeah,
renting and they're working there, and like it does look really fun. But I think for me, traveling was always the priority. And I think also I knew if I move out and I rent in London, my money is going on the rent. Whereas I'm
yeah.
very fortunate, like at home, I didn't really have to pay rent. I could just try and save everything I could. So I think
Mhm.
I kind of made that choice. Like I was just going to live at home. So yeah, I lived at home for 3 years after uni, which is not what I planned. Like when I
Yeah.
graduated, I was like, oh, I'll live at home for a year and then I'll be able to move out. And yeah, obviously COVID didn't help that either. I just sort of had to take the job I could get and then just try and save up really.
Yeah. And if anything, that helped you out those additional years, putting more money
Yeah,
aside. And
exactly.
moving on to where you're at now and going to travel, pre-breaking your wrist, let's talk about you getting actually building up to this moment. Obviously, you were in a job, fully employed before going out there, um, and you mentioned with your friends you were going to go together before she got her job, and it
Mm.
became a solo venture. How long were you? And you were planning this in like 2020, but were you and your friends like planning this? Did you have your route mapped out? Did you have all your like paperwork, passport, visas? Was this all planned in those COVID years, ready for you to jump when you could?
In it's hard to remember. In COVID, it was because we were supposed to go in April 2020. So originally, we were going to Vietnam, Cambodia, I think maybe Bali, Australia, New Zealand. I'm pretty sure it was that order. And I think we were planning to just go for maybe 3 months. But I'd only saved in 2020, I'd only saved £1,000, and I don't know how I thought I was going to go traveling with £1,000 because you need more than £1,000
Yeah, that
for
that that's a very
traveling.
good weekend in Paris, I'd say.
Yes. So we did have it quite planned out in 2020, but I think something I've realised massively from traveling now, like I think when I first went, I put where I wanted to go and I put very like fixed dates on it and I tried to book all my flights in advance and everything. And I kind of realised when I got to Bali, I was like, you just you just don't want to pre-plan it. You just want to kind of like see where you want to go. And I think especially as a solo traveler, you want to see who you meet, like where they're going, what they recommend. Like I kind of feel like I just want to go with the flow. So
Yeah,
it's very much like my traveling forms as I'm going, and I kind of pick what I'm doing the next week. I kind of just think 1 week ahead and then see where I'm going.
pretty damn good way to think about it, taking each day as it comes. I think that's what a
Yeah.
lot of people hope to do.
But it's changed. Yeah, that's changed a lot because that was not my mindset at the start. I was like, I need to have months planned, and you just don't.
I find with a few people who've gone on their little, 6 months to a year travel excursions, they plan out these massive, elaborate routes, and next thing you know, they end up spending half the time in one country just because
Yeah,
they've fallen so in love with it.
yeah,
Um, you've kind of been around in just what the 4 months that you've been
yeah.
out. You mentioned that you bumped into people at like CrossFit,
Mm.
which we'll get onto it a bit more. But with these other CrossFit travelers and these like kind of groups and tours, did you stick around with them for long? Are they all solo travelers and you just all fit
Yeah.
together?
So, I actually did another group tour in Vietnam. So, basically, just to explain the backstory after the wrist. So, I had to be at home for 8 weeks, which took me to December. And then my parents had already booked because, as parents do, they book everything and plan it all in advance. So they had booked to go to New Zealand for Christmas. So I was like, right, I have to get out to meet them for Christmas, or I'm spending Christmas on my own at home. So I basically went over all of the countries, obviously, and went to New Zealand for Christmas. And then I went to Australia to see my friends from uni and stay with my second cousin, which was really nice. But then I was like, oh, I do want to go back to Asia and basically do the countries that I was supposed to do before I broke my wrist. But because because kind of I felt a lot of things had gone wrong, and I was like, I just don't. Not that I would break anything again, but I just felt like at that time I was like, I actually just want someone to organise a little bit of the
Yeah.
traveling for me, just so I don't have to think for a couple of weeks, and it can kind of ease me back into like solo traveling Asia, basically.
Mm.
So I booked a tour with Continue, which is like a tour company. And I was a little bit worried because basically I like to go out and like have a drink, but I'm not a massive partier. And I was like, oh, what if it's like really party? What if it's all 18-year-olds? But I basically checked all the reviews and like the reviews were really good. And it's a tour that's 18 to 35. So I'm 26.
Okay.
So I'm kind of in the middle of the age group. It's not like I would be the oldest or anything. Um, so I booked that tour literally like a week before it started. I called them and they were like, "Oh yes, like we've still got space, like we can get you in last minute, basically." So I flew to Ho Chi Minh because it started in Ho Chi Minh, and that's really nice because like they tell you obviously like where to meet, and you have like a
Yeah.
welcome meeting when you get there. And yeah, that was amazing. And it was basically 2 weeks going from south to north of Vietnam, And it was just really nice that it was all organized, because it's quite a long country. So you either have to do like sleeper buses, sleeper trains, or you do internal flights to basically get between the places, because it's a
Yeah.
really long country to travel. So it was really nice because they had internal flights booked for all of us. So you didn't really have to
Uh,
think about it, because they'd just be like, right, tomorrow we're doing this and you need to be there at this time. And yeah, it was just really fun, and like such a nice group of people. There were no 18-year-olds. I think the youngest was 23 and then the oldest was 35. So like a really,
yeah.
really nice group. We all got on so well. And because you're traveling with them for like 2 weeks, you just like, you all get on and you all get really close together, because I think you'll experience everything together. Like it's
Yeah.
just really lovely. So that was really good fun. And then a lot of them were traveling like other countries after. So I actually saw some of them, not in the Philippines, because I went to the Philippines after, but then in Bali, I reconnected with some of them. And actually, a lot of them are Australian. So I think when I go back to Australia, I'll see a lot of them in
Yeah.
Australia as well, which is really nice. And like, it's nice to see, where they are now or where they're traveling, and kind of keep in contact. And I think, like, if someone is a bit nervous about like going on their own, or they just don't really want to plan it themselves, like doing a tour is definitely a really good kind of introduction. I think it gives you that confidence to then kind of go on your own after, because you're like, oh, I'm used to meeting people now and I kind of know my way around. And yeah, it's just a bit easier.
After taking an injury and setting back your
Yeah.
travel plans, I can imagine that kind of knocking confidence just it kind of naturally occurs, even though it's just something that you couldn't avoid.
Yeah.
And going back out, and once your tour finished, what was the next step after that? Were you fully on your own?
So yes, I was fully on my own. Um, But because I had researched Vietnam so much, because this is obviously my third time of booking to go to Vietnam, so I knew everywhere that I wanted to go, most of which was covered by the tour. But basically, in the north, there was the Ha Giang Loop, which I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And part of the reason why I picked this tour was because it goes south to north. Most other tours I looked at went north to south, but there's more to do in the north of Vietnam. And I was like, I know I want to finish in the north, because everyone that you speak to is like, oh, the north is so much better. So I knew that I basically wanted to go that direction. So then when the tour finished in Hanoi, I basically booked like a couple of nights in a hostel just so I could explore the city. And that was really nice actually, because other people from the tour were also staying for like a couple of nights. So I guess, yeah, people were there, even if we weren't staying in the same hostel, we'd like meet up for dinner or go and explore and things. And then after that, I basically booked a tour to do the Ha Giang Loop, which is basically, it's usually 3 nights, 4 days, and you go on a motorbike like through the mountains right in the north of
Yeah.
Vietnam. So you go right up to the Chinese border, and it's just so pretty. Like it's so beautiful. And I don't drive a motorbike, so I did not drive. I basically got a driver, so you can book onto a tour, and there's like professional drivers that will drive you around, and it's just so amazing. So I basically just looked that up online, booked a tour with good reviews, and then we met in Hanoi, and then they organised the transport. We'd go on a sleeper bus up to Ha Giang, and then the next
Yeah.
morning we started the tour. So that was, entirely new group of people going. I was on my own again then, having to like make friends again. But yeah, I think it wasn't a problem. It was nice. It was really
Now,
fun.
do you think all these other travelers that you're making friends with and kind of connecting with, um, is everyone quite open and friendly that you're bumping into? Are you quite
Yeah.
easy to get along with, open person?
Yes, definitely. But I would say something I noticed is I have noticed a difference between Southeast Asia and Australia. So when I was in Australia, I didn't really do much solo traveling when I was there 5 years ago, because I was a bit younger, I wasn't so confident. But when I was there in January, I did a tiny little trip. So I didn't solo travel loads, I must say. But I went up to Byron Bay, which was really nice. And then I went to the Gold Coast to Surfers Paradise, and then up to Brisbane. And it was nice, but I stayed in hostels. I mean, one, sorry, the hostels are so expensive there, which is a big downside. But
Yeah.
I also didn't find people were as open. So, like when you'd go in the common areas, there's a lot of big groups traveling the East Coast in Australia. And sometimes there'd be groups of like 20, 30 people. And it was kind of obvious they all knew each other and, you know, they're all drinking and laughing. And it's kind of quite intimidating for like a solo traveler. Like you're not going to go off and be like, hey, and like trying to fit into the group. So I did find that a bit harder. I did manage to make
Mm.
friends in all the places, but I think in Australia it'd more be that I'd be sitting in the dorm room or I don't know, sorting out my stuff or something, and someone else would walk in and then you'd end up chatting to them. But in the actual common areas, I found they were kind of taken over by big groups, which I didn't like so
Groups.
much. Um, but in Asia, it's totally different. Like, I think I would say the majority of people here are solo traveling. Everyone's very open in that, even open in that you can, especially in Bali, you can walk like into a coffee shop, you can walk into a cafe, you can just even just sit and talk to someone. Like you could just walk up to anyone and talk to them, which I don't think you can't really do that at home. You can't really do that in Australia because people are like, what? Like, what are you talking to me? Don't talk to me. Whereas here, everyone just talks to each other. Like people are very open, everyone's very friendly. And I think that's what I like so much about Southeast Asia.
When I've been around, everyone there is so nice, so welcoming
Yeah,
to tourists and foreigners and expats that you get so taken back by it because you know, living in England, you couldn't go talk to a random
no,
person in a coffee shop. You'd end up being kind of verbally
yeah,
abused and told to get out.
exactly.
I suppose, obviously, if this is like your first kind of real big kind of solo
Mm.
adventure, and as we mentioned, you can't really just bump into random strangers in a Costa shop in England. What were your, as a solo traveler, what were your initial concerns before, besides breaking another bone, what were your concerns about going for the long haul experience?
I guess my biggest concern is always not making friends. And I think, oh, yeah, like what if I don't meet anyone? And what if I'm on my own? But that's literally never been the case. And I think when I worry that, because I still do sometimes, I just think, well, that's never
Yeah.
happened. There has never even been a day that I've been on my own. And like I'm someone that I need to be around people. Like I really kind of get energy off of talking to people. Like I guess, yeah, I'm an extrovert and I just don't really like being on my own. And even if I spend like a few hours on my own, I just get like quite lonely and quite down. So I think I always need to speak to people. But it's been so easy traveling because you can always find someone to speak to. And I think, you know, you can just go down to the area, like in the hostel, like the kitchen area or the pool or something, and just sit and start talking to anyone. There's always people to like chat to. I guess as well, like I suppose safety is a consideration, but I wouldn't say that it's something that has overly worried me. I don't know
Mm.
why, but it just hasn't. But I suppose it's because the destinations that I'm going to, I've looked up before, like is it safe for a like solo female traveler, and looked at reviews. And also as I'm traveling, like when you get going it's much easier because you talk to people, oh, where have you been, where are you going, and they're like, oh yes, I've been here, like stay here, go to this place. And then you sort of end up before you know it with a massive list on your notes on your phone of like, go here and stay here and eat here. So wherever I go I've kind of
Yeah.
got recommendations, and then you kind of know that it's, you know, safe and well traveled. Everywhere I'm going are very like well traveled routes. I'm not really going off the beaten path. So
You sound so incredibly thought out and planned for your journey. So everything's down, which is a fantastic, you know, thing to have.
hmm.
You know, a lot of people, I've spoken to a few people who have been caught off because they just don't plan enough. But
Yes.
I suppose that takes on to the next point. Before even going out there, as a kind of long-term traveler, you're out there for months on end. What was the packing situation like
Oh,
for people going traveling and they're backpacking, they're doing whatever, whether that be, you know, East Asia,
yeah.
Australia? I think a lot of people can either tend to think they need to pack everything in the kitchen sink and then realize that Ryanair won't let them on
Yes.
the plane with that
This
much.
was me.
How was the packing
That was
situation?
me.
Oh,
That was me. I had literally a nightmare because it was a big trip and I didn't know what to pack. And I was like, well, I need everything. And I was trying to pack it all. And obviously I was trying to pack like multiple trainers. I thought I needed my gym shoes, my running trainers, and my fashion trainers, and I needed all my summer stuff, and I needed my jeans, and I needed jumpers, and I was like, this is way too much. So I was trying to pack it with my mum literally the night before my flight, and I was on the floor like crying because I was like, it's not going to fit in the rucksack, because the rucksack also I bought in 2020, and then I was like, oh yeah, it will fit, had it all laid out, and then tried to fit it in the night before the flight and it wouldn't fit. So I had a massive panic, basically ended up taking a suitcase because I was like, it won't fit in the rucksack. So I took a suitcase to Bali. I was that girl that traveled with a suitcase, which in Bali it was actually fine. Like, I wasn't traveling like anywhere difficult. It's very westernized. When I went on the islands, I went to Gili Tea. You could have taken a suitcase, and some people do. Like, I got the ferry the other day and people were taking big suitcases. But for that, I just packed a day bag and just used that for a few nights. But I did realise when I was travelling, I was like, I don't need half this stuff. So basically, I've now swapped because I got to go home, repack everything. I've now swapped to a rucksack and just realised, no, I do not need 2 pairs of trainers. I need 1 pair of trainers, and just been like very, very strict with what I take, because I think before I just took way too much. And also I've realised you can buy clothes in Asia. Like, I don't need to take absolutely everything, and I will buy clothes here because the clothes in Bali are so nice. So I'd learned actually leave a bit of extra room. But yeah, packing at first was a nightmare, but definitely taking a rucksack is better, and less stuff is more, and you can always buy stuff out here. However, one essential that I would definitely pack more of, that I packed more of for this trip, is sun cream, because sun cream is really expensive in Bali.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that I think a lot of, people from England and Europe as a whole tend to forget, that if you need it here, the one thing I found when I moved to China was, as a guy in particular, deodorant, antiperspirant isn't really a thing in China, and I did not pack enough of it. And when going shopping, it was, it was the most expensive thing on my shopping list, just because they don't use it out there. They apparently, a lot of they just don't produce BO like Westerners do.
Yeah, I
So,
definitely think toiletries are quite essential, but clothing, no, you do not need 50 outfits, because you can do the washing and also buy new stuff. So I think, yeah, I learned that, and definitely taking a rucksack is a better idea. But I was lucky that I could swap.
yeah, that's probably the best thing. I was going to say, did you just do a tactical exchange at a thrift shop, leave the suitcase, grab a backpack, and move
Well,
on?
yeah, no, I didn't.
Right.
But it's, the broken wrist meant I could go home, reassess.
You mentioning you're really into your CrossFit, really into fitness. You went home, broke your wrist. How did you find that? Was the wrist injury limiting you on your return trip at all?
So it is limiting me at CrossFit, which is annoying just because I don't have full mobility, and it aches kind of when I'm using it. But in terms of like day-to-day tasks, it's absolutely fine. But, to get back to like handstanding and also like front squats and overhead, it's quite a lot of pressure on my wrist. So those things are a bit more difficult. But I'm doing CrossFit in Bali, and like all the coaches are like aware of my wrist, and they're very like accommodating, which is nice. But actually, when I went out to New Zealand, because it had only been like 8 weeks since my surgery, so it was very, very recent, I still needed physio. So I was having physio in New Zealand, and then when I went to Australia, I was having physio as well, because I wanted to keep up the physio for at least kind of 12 weeks or so after the operation. But yeah, I haven't had any physio in Asia, just because it gets expensive as well, and obviously it's a bit harder to find in Asia.
And probably you want to be saving the money for other more enjoyable things as well. With all of your CrossFit gyms, I mean, when I've been abroad, there have been a few kind of gyms here and there. Are a lot of like the hostels that you're staying in, are there gyms nearby? Are they easily accessible? Or are these ones that, again, with your immense prepping, you found ones near you where you're staying?
So it depends where you are. In Bali, it's so westernized, especially in Canggu, that they love fitness here. They love CrossFit. So I think there's like 3 CrossFits in Canggu. So there's loads. There's one literally a 2-minute walk from my hostel. So I've joined there at the moment, which is amazing. So Bali, it's very easy, and everything in Bali it's all very pretty. It looks like it's made for Instagram. So there's another CrossFit
Yeah.
that I want to go back to in Uluwatu, which is quite a new one called Bamboo Fitness that opened. I think it opened last summer, and it's probably like the nicest branded gym I've ever seen. Like every little detail is like branded, and all the equipment in the interior is all kind of color scheme, and it's just very pretty, which I really like. And obviously, like
Mm.
the classes are amazing, the coaching is incredible. So it's really in Bali to kind of exercise. And like even if you don't do CrossFit, there's like so many gyms, there's like yoga studios, there's MMA, like there is every type of fitness here, and it's like a very good standard. But in Vietnam and the Philippines, there's not really as many CrossFits there. And
Yeah.
Cambodia, where I broke my wrist. I was in Cambodia for 24 hours, so I can't really say much about it. But I think there is one CrossFit in Cambodia, which is in Phnom Penh, which is the CrossFit I went to. So
Mm.
they're kind of few and far between. Same in Vietnam, I think there might be 2, but I didn't go to them there. I kind of just thought, oh, I'll just save my money for like going to CrossFit in Bali. In the Philippines, I think there's maybe one CrossFit in Siargao, but I didn't go to that island. And there must be one in Manila, but there's not really. The islands that I went to are so tiny and so remote that there's not CrossFit there yet. You know, maybe if they get
No.
more westernized. It's definitely the more kind of built up Western areas that have CrossFit.
Yeah, I think you'll be fine when you go to Manila.
Yeah.
Manila's becoming ever more Western, I think, because of all the investment going on there.
Mm.
Obviously, the thing that goes hand in hand with fitness as well is obviously food and nutrition. A lot of people who may not be expecting, let's just keep it as plain and simple. They might not be expecting steak and chips and what they get at home. How are you finding bouncing around from town to town, country to country? How are you finding the food and shifting to all these different tastes from the cities?
If we're talking like health wise, basically at
Mm.
home, like especially last summer, I was very like strict with my eating. I was tracking my calories, I was tracking my food and everything. Which I think that was fine, but I would say I didn't have like freedom with my food. Like, I'd be like, oh, like I can't have that because it doesn't fit like with my macros, or it'll put me over my calories. Like I was very, very strict with it. And then even when I came to Bali in September, because I was doing the fitness retreat and I'd been very strict with it at home, I was still kind of in that mindset. Um, in Bali, you can get any food that you want in Canggu, at least, like literally anything. So it's easy. It's easier than other Asian countries to kind of keep on track, eat healthy. Um, Obviously, I
Yeah.
was like drinking a lot more because we were having like cocktails out in the evenings. But it was only kind of, I would say, when I broke my wrist that my mindset kind of changed a bit, because obviously I wasn't feeling that well, and I was like, oh, I'm just at home, and it was winter, and I
It comes
started
up.
like, I don't know, being like, oh, it's okay, like I can have some chocolate and some like cake, or I could have like my mum's lasagna and not think, oh, I should only have a small bit. I'd be like, no, eat loads of it. And then it kind of meant when I went back out traveling, like in a weird way, I kind of, because the tracking mindset had gone, I sort of felt more freedom with what I was eating. And I guess it kind of made it like more enjoyable, because I was like, well, just enjoy yourself. Like you don't need to like track everything. Like it just kind of changed my mindset. Um, in
Mm.
Vietnam, the food is amazing. Like it's the best. I think the best country for food. It's very, very cheap. You can literally have a meal for like a couple of pounds, maybe even £1, and it's just so delicious. So they have something called pho, which is like kind of like noodly soup, which is really, really delicious. And
Yeah.
then they also have lots of like spring rolls, lots of fish. And it's kind of funny because when they'll serve like a fish, like for people to share like in the middle of the table, and it kind of makes you laugh because they just put a whole fish like out on the table, so you have to like scrape it off the side. Whereas at home they wouldn't quite serve it like that, but it's really delicious. And then they also have banh mi, which is like it's just kind of a baguette really, but it's really nice and very cheap. So yeah, everywhere you eat in Vietnam, it's just so delicious. And something that was really good about my tour that I did as well was our tour leader was absolutely amazing, and she obviously knew the country very well, and she would give us all these food recommendations of like restaurants and bars. So it was really fun because even in our free time we were like, oh, let's try this restaurant. And yeah, you could just have very, very good food for like a really cheap price. And then going to the Philippines, the food in the Philippines is not that good. So that was a bit of
It's very
that was a
different,
bit
isn't it?
of a change. I'd had such good food, and I sometimes have like a bit of a sensitive stomach in Asia. Like I get ill in Bali, and then I've been ill before in Thailand. Like I just know that my stomach is sensitive to like different foods. But I'd got very confident because in
Yeah.
Vietnam I was like, well, I'm fine, and the food is great. Like, you know, it's absolutely fine. And then got to the Philippines, and the food just kept making me ill, and it's just not as nice. It's a bit more expensive, and you'd get something, and I just found a lot of the time I was kind of disappointed. But again, there was a lot of Western stuff as well. We didn't have that much Filipino food. I did have it sometimes. And then in Bali, again, like as I said, in Canggu, I eat a lot of like Western food. But I just went over to Lombok, which is basically an island. Like it's the island next to Bali, and that's a lot less westernized. And that felt like going back kind of into real Asia. And I suddenly realized, I was like, oh, Indonesian food is really spicy, because obviously here it's been very like westernized, and there I realized that you have to say to them to make it like not spicy. And I went on a boat trip from Lombok to Flores via Komodo, which was very good, which I recommend people do. And on the boat it was all Indonesian food, like, so that, I guess that was kind of nice because it feels like a more authentic experience. But definitely,
Yeah.
I find spice so hard, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's not spicy. It's not spicy." And to me, it's really spicy. But I like the taste of it.
Yeah,
It's
it's not
just,
spicy to
yeah, I
them.
just find the spice a little bit difficult, but it's nice.
It's nice, but you know, you tend to like do the old
Yeah.
necking water. And so, obviously, going out on tours and eating out and going to cocktails, enjoying yourself. One thing everyone tends to think about, and I know it was something that really came up in my mind coming out of uni, is can I afford to go traveling? Am I going to be, am I going to be like sleeping on a beach under a pier or something? How did you find budgeting before coming out, and how are you finding that budget plan
It's
now you're
been a
here?
lot more expensive than I thought it was going to be. Um, when I first came out, I was really excited by how cheap Bali was, because compared to the UK, it's so cheap. And I was like, oh, I've saved all this money, like, you know, it's gonna last for ages. And then as I've gone on, my mindset has like really, really changed, especially as I've had to do extra flights and fly all the way to New Zealand at Christmas, which took like a chunk of my money that I wasn't expecting. And there's just been expenses come up that I just didn't really budget for. For example, the Philippines was a lot more expensive than I thought it was going to be. I wasn't originally planning on going there. I wanted to go back to Bali after Vietnam. And I was like, oh, the Philippines is kind of on the way. I'd heard good things from people. I was like, oh, I'll do a little stop there for a few weeks and explore, not realizing that for the Philippines, it's because it's lots of little islands, it's quite hard to get around. And that is somewhere you have to plan in advance. And I took my mindset of Bali like, oh, I can just plan the day before. No, in the Philippines, you have to book your flights internally. You have to book your ferry. Like, you need to book all the transport, because I left it till the last minute. And not only could I not fly between the islands on the days that I wanted to, because the airports are so small and there's a couple of flights a day on these tiny little propeller planes. So I had to change the dates of all my trip. And then the price that I paid was really, really expensive. Like for an hour flight, I was paying like £150 for these flights, and I didn't budget for that. Um, so that, yeah, that really annoyed me because I've been trying to be good with my budgeting, especially as my trip's gone on. Like I'm very far into my trip now. I don't have loads of money left, so I'm like, right, if I want to keep traveling, I need this is how much I need to spend all the time. But it's been very hard to stick to, especially with unexpected costs like internal flights and then you think, oh, like visas and just little things like that that you maybe don't think about. And then
Yeah.
like accommodation, I got very used to it in Vietnam because it was so cheap. Like when I stayed in hostels there, it'd be £5 a night. The Philippines, it was about £16 a night, which is kind of similar, a tiny bit cheaper in Bali. Like it's a big difference. So I think trying to adjust to like the different prices in each country, it has been quite hard. And like it's just been way
Yeah.
more expensive than I thought it was going to be honest. And I have found the budgeting and like the money side of it quite stressful at times as well. Yeah.
It's not taken away from any of the experiences that you
No,
planned,
no,
is it? Or are you having to find
it
yourself dialing
hasn't. It
back?
hasn't. I think, I guess anyone could be like, oh, it would be nice to have more money, but it's a good skill as well, the budgeting. And
Yeah.
I think also that's what also pushed me to look into more freelance work because, as I said before, I was working for the agency at home, um, which was good, and I've continued to do that while I'm traveling. But the work is very inconsistent. Some weeks you can get given quite a bit of work, another week you can get no work. So it was kind of hard. Like you don't know
Mm.
how much you've got coming in, and I think also I got used to at home, obviously when you're on a salary, you're like, oh, but I know that I'm getting paid at the end of the month. And it's not really like that. It's like some months I can make, you know, an all right amount. And then the next month I'm like, but I've hardly made anything. Um, so I was kind of like,
Yeah.
right, I want to look for other ways that I can kind of supplement that as well. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to look at getting my own clients. So this has been like a whole new challenge that I've set myself in like the past month or so. I was like, right, I'm going to find my own clients. Then I can set my own prices. I can pick who my clients are. And I guess just really like be my own boss and not have like an agency. Yeah,
Not have to worry about
exactly, which is good.
it. Yeah.
But it's been a whole new kind of skill to learn. Like, how do I get my clients? Like, where do I find them? Kind of how do I sell myself? How do I set up my branding? How do I price everything? So it's been like a real learning
Mm.
curve and really just having to kind of
Yeah.
launch myself into it and yeah, just be confident and just go for it because I know that I know what I'm doing, but it's just yeah,
It's
learning those
getting there.
additional skills, making other people believe that you can help them and give them the results that they want. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you still doing the agency
Yes.
work as well as to obviously put in
Yeah,
that little bit
keeping the
extra when it
agency
comes?
work running because yeah, why not? It's good to have that
Yeah.
going as well.
As you mentioned, starting up your own freelance, kind of find your own clients. With the clients and the networking you're doing, I'm assuming a lot of them are a bit more Europe, Western side of it
Yes.
compared to where you are. And how are you finding making that
So
connection so
it is
far?
quite challenging. So I've mainly been using like social media, like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook groups, just like really posting, like messaging people, trying to set up calls with people. But it has been challenging. And I think something that I need to learn to be patient because I've realized whilst I might be like, yes, I can do this for you, like, you know, this is how much it's going to cost and kind of set everything out for them, it takes people and businesses and startups, especially, it takes them time. I think, you know, I had some potential clients in the Philippines and I was like, right, okay, they're going to sign on next week. Like, this is it. And they haven't. And it's just taken time because they're like, oh no, we need to speak to this person. We need to work out this. And you realize actually it has to go through the whole business and you have to like be patient with it. So that's
Mm.
definitely something that's been challenging. Yeah, it's been different and it's been hard, but I think that it will be rewarding and I think I will get there. I just need to
Yeah,
sort of
definitely.
keep on going with it and get it properly up and running. And then I think once you have like, you know, a few clients going, then they'll recommend you to others and then it kind of carries on. But yeah, it's been mostly online that I've been finding clients at the moment.
And also, you mentioned the ones in the Philippines. Are you finding you're making connections, kind of professional connections and networking out east, or
So
are these just ones you've come across while going
in
through social media?
Bali, yes, because, and I think that is something as well, like being at the gym here, like I'm trying to target health and fitness professionals, and everyone there, is doing something different. And there's people that are like teaching yoga, or there's people that are managing a studio, or, doing different things. So there's so many connections there. So I think in Bali, it's been very, very useful to make connections. And then the other places, I haven't really so much. I think it depends kind of the groups that you're mixing with and the people, and yeah, it just depends on where you're staying, what you're doing, and who you meet, I guess. But Bali has definitely been good for like networking.
And you've got quite a bit of a presence. You're across Instagram. I've stumbled across a bit of your TikToks that you're making out there. Are you maintaining a lot of these? Are they keeping you busy? And are you also leveraging these platforms to help grow your personal
um
brand as
they
well?
are keeping me busy, yes. Creating content actually takes a lot of time. I wouldn't say I've been completely like on the ball with all of it. Like I definitely could be better. With TikTok, I've really enjoyed doing that. But I basically made that as like a travel diary, because I was like, I want my friends from home, my family, to like see what I'm up to. But also, I guess it is good because it kind of shows that like you can create videos and you can make content and editing skills and stuff. But that's been like really just for fun. And then with my Instagram, so I have a fitness Instagram, but it's now sort of merged into like fitness and travel. Just because I
Yeah.
obviously wasn't really, I was doing a little bit when I broke my wrist, but I couldn't work out to the same amount. And then when I was traveling, I wasn't working out as much. So I was like, oh, I'll make it kind of fitness and travel. But then on the side as well, I've been trying to make like a marketing Instagram. But I do think that's something that I need to be more disciplined with and put more time into kind of building and growing and just putting like more content out, because I think that would really benefit me as well.
No, hugely. And I suppose, as we mentioned earlier, kind of staying fit on the go, traveling, you change your diet. A lot of people tend to like lose a lot of weight because they're on the move all the time. Have you had any people from, say, back home message you about, you know, how can I maintain a healthy lifestyle on the go? And also, I suppose in that retort as well, for people who are going traveling who may not have a gym, have you done any exercises when you're not near a CrossFit gym that you tend to always do? Because you're
I
quite
would
an
love,
active
I would
person.
love to be like, yeah, well, I did this morning, to be fair. Like some of the hostels will have like yoga mats and stuff. So this morning I did like morning yoga, but I would love to be like, yeah, I do workouts in my room, but I really don't, to be honest. Um, I I
Gym junkie, yeah.
absolutely love the gym and I love CrossFit. And when I'm at home, I was doing it 6 days a week, like just all the time. And then in Australia, I was doing CrossFit. So to be honest, my mindset when I was in Vietnam in particular, because that was very, very fast paced, like always moving, and the Philippines, my main mindset for that was enjoy your traveling. Don't worry about trying to fit the gym in, because I think for me, part of the reason I broke my wrist was because I was training so much. I was rushing around, like trying to fit all the training in. And actually trying to do that when you're moving around, you don't know where you are in a city and you're trying to find your gym. And sometimes it's just a bit too stressful. And I think actually sometimes taking a step back and just being okay with, actually, I'm going to lose a bit of strength. I might not be quite as fit. I might be like a tiny bit like, fatter or whatever. Like I was like, that's
Yeah.
fine. Like it's literally a couple of months. I was like, just take that time. Like don't worry about it too much. I did train occasionally. Like I trained a couple of times in Vietnam. I trained a couple of times in the Philippines. But it would more just be like if I saw a gym, and or if people at the hostel were like, oh, like in the Philippines, they were like, oh, there's a gym next door and it's literally like 100 pesos to use it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's easy. Like I'll just go in the morning. But I wasn't really like going out of my way to like train. And yeah, I think also working out at home or like in the hostel, I think COVID just has tired me of home workouts and I just don't enjoy it. So I think I kind of tend to wait if there's a gym. In Bali, it's so much easier to like keep on top of my routine, and I love being back at the gym and like It just feels so good, and there's such like a community aspect to it here. And like with CrossFit in particular, I know I keep talking about it, but there's it is a big community, and I do find whenever I do drop-ins, like anywhere where I've been, everyone's so welcoming, and like I like generally always get on with other people that do CrossFit because we all have that thing in common. So yeah, it is nice that in Bali I can keep in more of a routine, but it's not always possible when you're traveling, and I think it's just trying to be like okay about that.
Yeah, and just enjoying the time, because
Yeah,
you can always go back
exactly.
to the gym when you come home. We're talking about you love the CrossFit, you love going to the
Mm.
gym, you're going on these tours. Are there let's look at the two opposite sides of it. What is the most, let's just say, my favorite word thanks to TikTok, what has been the bougiest thing that you've done on your trip so far? And what has been the most off the
It's a
beaten
good
track that
question.
you've done so far?
Well, I don't want to repeat myself, but I do think my CrossFit retreat was the bougiest thing.
To be
Yeah,
fair, a
and
CrossFit retreat
we
does sound
stayed
quite
in a
bougie.
five-star hotel, which was incredible. And I had booked basically a triple share room, so I was going to be sharing with two people that I didn't know. And I thought it was going to be like, I don't know, like Travel Lodge, where it was like two beds and a little bed in the corner. And I thought, oh well, I'll be on the little bed. No, it was a massive, basically like two-story apartment. I had my own room, my own bathroom, like TV.
Yeah.
That was luxury. And yeah, it was just so lovely. And for like our closing party at the end of the retreat, we did it at Finn's Beach Club, which is like a famous beach club in Canggu. But it's quite pricey there. And I went there the other week and I was like, oh, I don't think I can afford a drink, guys. But I didn't realise when we went, because it was all open bar tab when we went. So because it was part of the retreat, we could just order like jugs of cocktails, we could order like Grey Goose vodka, we could order pizza, like whatever we wanted. So I was very, very lucky. And I started my traveling off very high. Yes.
At the highest
And
high that you
then
could possibly be.
I think the times when where have I been off the beaten track? I would say probably the most basic that I've done is either the Hajang Loop, which was incredible, but I was
Mm.
kind of pleased to be back in Hanoi because we were staying in homestays, but it was very, very basic, and it was really cold as well because it was North Vietnam and I didn't have any winter stuff. I just had summer stuff. So I just had a jumper and leggings, which was way too cold. I think it got down to like 8 degrees. Like it wasn't very warm, and it was all open and outdoors. So we would eat outdoors, and then even when we were sleeping, it was all open, and that was quite cold. And then when I did the boat trip last week, which was also amazing, that went from Lombok to Flores, and then that was 3 days, no, 4 days, 3 nights, and it was so much fun. But we basically slept on mattresses, like on the deck on the boat. So there was like 40 people, and you just sleep on a little mattress. And other people have asked me since I've been back, they're like, oh, but was the aircon good? And I was like, no, there was no aircon. There was no aircon on this boat. It was literally you just sleep on your little mattress area, and then you all wake up like when the sun rises. And there wasn't even something that did annoy me slightly was there wasn't even any like comfortable seats or anything. Like by the end of it, we were all like desperate for like a cushion or a bean bag or something, because you just had to like sit on the floor all the time. And I'd been surfing the day before in Lombok, and the sun cream must have all rubbed off because I got incredibly burnt. Like I was like lobster red. And then I went on this boat trip, and like sitting down like hurt so much. And there was no cushions, and you had to just like sit on the floor or like sit on the side of the boat. But it was really good fun. And I think actually, some of these experiences, that it's not going to be luxury, and you just think, well, I'll just have a good sleep when I get to wherever I'm going, and you just kind of enjoy the time. Yeah. And
And rub
actually,
aloe
I
vera
think
oil.
going on those kind of rough and ready kind of rich, like what they call trips, um, you do go to the more remote areas, because that boat trip was amazing. Because when we'd stop at places, it was just our boat. And I think so many places I've been, it's like you and hundreds of other tourists, and you're like, oh, okay. but that was literally just our boat, and it was so amazing. Like there'd be no one else in the sea, and you'd stop at beaches, and it would be very, very remote and like really beautiful. And I think that was really nice, like not to be with tourists all the time.
That's always a nice thing when you find yourself, especially when you go out to East Asia, you just
Yeah,
realise there's you, maybe one other tourist, but you can just not have to worry about everyone getting that perfect Instagram photo, which can tend to ruin
yeah,
the nice little scenery that you're finally getting to enjoy. Now that you're talking about, you've seen all these amazing sites, you've gone on these amazing tours, you've gone diving, surfing. I wouldn't be surprised if you say you've done like dry mountain skiing at some point. Are you thinking? Obviously, you got a few more months left. Are you thinking about potentially going abroad again and maybe working abroad? You mentioned you got really bitten by the travel bug when you were at uni. You've now done all this and you sound
yeah.
exceedingly happy about it. When you come back to the UK, do you think there might be looking online, might perhaps move into the Middle East, huge CrossFit environment, or maybe going somewhere like China and working
Hmm.
somewhere Shanghai, doing teaching and marketing? Do you think moving abroad is something that might
Yes,
come
I
up?
definitely think so. These are really good ideas that I hadn't even really thought of. I think something I've realized is that I love traveling, and like the more people I speak to, the more places I want to go. And I think it's sort of opened my eyes to
Mm,
that. And I think I'm going to want to travel forever. Like, obviously, I'm going to have to work as well, but I don't think it's ever going to
yeah.
go away, the traveling bug. I think obviously the way I travel, like as I get older, it will change, and hopefully, in 10, 20, like however many years' time, I will travel a bit more luxury. But I think I'm always going to want to travel, and I would like to work abroad. I don't know where. There's so many options. I'm just not sure. But at the moment in my head, I kind of think it would be nice at some point, perhaps, to like properly get a remote job or build up my freelance work enough to live in Bali. Like that really appeals to me. But I'm also kind of thinking that I would like to work for a health and fitness brand, like in house doing their marketing. That's kind of on my mind at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know whether that will be UK based and then maybe in a few years' time, like try and move abroad. I'm not sure, but yeah, I definitely fancy working abroad.
I can't blame it. And the way everyone talks about it, it seems like it's the better thing. Most
Yeah,
most Brits are looking to move abroad anyway. I mean, you've really kind of painted a really vivid picture of all these amazing places you've been. Obviously, and was it you're looking to
yeah.
go to
So
Thailand next? Was it?
I think I will go to Thailand. Basically, in my long travel route, I need to go back to Australia because I've left my laptop there. So I need to go back and get my laptop, and I'm gonna
Oh,
see my friends again and my cousin, and like stay there for a couple of weeks. And then obviously the journey home is quite long, and I didn't get to go to Thailand. I have been before, but only for a very short trip. And as I've been traveling, basically everyone that I speak to
mm,
is like, "Oh, Thailand this, Thailand that, Thailand." And so I'm like, well, there must be something good about it. And it kind of breaks up the journey home. So I think I'm going to go to Thailand. I want to go to Koh Tao and dive. I've heard that Chiang Mai is good and Pai. So I might go to those places. And yeah, I think obviously it's a good backpacker place as well. Lots of solo travelers. And I think it'll be a good kind of route on the way home.
I endorse it. Definitely go to Thailand your way back. But you mentioned having to stop over in
Yeah.
Australia and obviously go see family. Being out in obviously Bali, Philippines, Vietnam, was there culture shock when obviously there will be culture shock, but did the culture shock really hit you when you first landed in each of these countries? And do you think you've gotten kind of used to this hostile lifestyle that going to Australia and more of a Western environment of Australia? Do you think that's going to be a
Um,
bit
I
jarring as well?
didn't, there wasn't a time where I was like, oh, I feel like I didn't feel the culture shock, like really. I don't remember feeling it. But I think actually maybe how I did it is because it gradually took me into Asia because I did Bali first and it's so westernized. I think it's a really good ease into Asia. But then when I went to Vietnam and the Philippines, it is, it is a bit more Asian, and like in the Philippines, just it's a bit harder to get around, and they only take like cash everywhere. You just have to think about things a bit more. So it did for me coming back to Bali after doing Vietnam and the Philippines. It was kind of I was like, oh, I can relax a little bit, reset, like because it's more Western here. I think it's easier. Um, but I definitely do love Asia, and I think I have got used to it. I love being in a hostel. some people that I speak to, they're like, oh, like every month or so they'll book a night like in a hotel just to have a bit of time to themselves. But I really don't find like being in a hostel a problem. Like I have got used to it, and it really doesn't bother me, to be honest. When I was in Australia before, I really
Mm.
missed Asia, which is why I went back to Vietnam and did the traveling. So I do think going back to Australia and going back home, it will be different, and it is more expensive, and it's just not as fun. I don't think Asia's just really good fun. Yeah.
It's not as warm.
So it is different.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always thing. Whenever I speak to someone who's come back, it always takes that week or so, not just to get used to
Mm.
everything, but also to change your mindset on how people how people live in different in England versus how they do out east. Before we kind of come on to my quick fire, one thing that's always quite important for travelers, and one thing that always threw me off when I went away, was knowing what apps and what resources to have on you. Obviously, you're darting around from country to country, tour to tour, but did you go out there with certain apps installed on your phone? Do you use something like a Chase bank account to use things abroad? But yeah, tell me what kind of apps did you go out there that you had to
Mm.
have to make your life easier?
I feel like this is really cliche, but my most used app is definitely TikTok. And that is where I get a lot of my travel recommendations and like packing ideas, or like places to eat, places to go, where to stay, what hostel to go to. Or even if I don't know where to go, like I've been in countries, like when I was in Vietnam, I was like, places to go for budget travelers, or solo female traveler destinations. And you look on TikTok and there's so many videos. And then I really like that because you can see like visually what the place
Mm.
is like, and it just feels very personal because you're just hearing from someone that's basically just like you as well. So I actually think for traveling, that's my most used app. Um, Other apps that I've used, like currency converter, is just very good. Obviously, you can always see the exchange rate, and it's important. Like if you're exchanging money, you can check like if you're getting a good rate. What else have I used? I use Chase as my bank account. I think it's a very good account to use because you get 1%
Yeah.
cash back on all your spending, and it doesn't cost you to spend abroad. So yeah, Chase is really good.
Do
In
a lot of
Bali,
them use
everywhere
card out
uses
there?
cards. So yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Vietnam, a lot of places use card, but not all. And in the Philippines, the islands I went to, no card. You had to use cash for everything, which was really annoying.
What about did you take a VPN out there with you? Do you
I
have one of those set
do.
up?
I've just been using a free one, called Windscribe, and I've just been using it for
Yes.
safety, like when I log into my online banking. So I'll always like turn it on just in
Mm.
case. I've never really heard of like people hacking in, but I think
Yeah.
maybe they can. I'm not sure. So I've been using it for that, and then also if I want to watch BBC iPlayer, it's good for that.
You're the first person I've spoken to who name dropped the iPlayer over Netflix. So that's a first. Thank you for that. And then one more question is kind of made me think about. You mentioned about TikTok and like in searching for all these things. One thing that always comes up for me, obviously looking at traveling, is my favorite one is always Instagram versus reality. When you see a lot of people putting out these wonderful views, and Bali comes up a lot, wonderful views of their pools outside their bedroom, and they turn the camera around and there's like a half drained river. Have you had any of these moments where you've been like, I'm going here because it looks fantastic,
Yes,
and you get there and it's
yes.
just an empty chair?
Um, a lot of places are like that. What's the name of the place in Vietnam? Oh, what's it called? The place where you go on the boat. Actually, can't remember. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, I will find it.
I'll find it
Um,
and include it in the edit.
yeah, that really shocked me, and it's like that in a lot of places. A lot of like water, there's rubbish everywhere, and that is really, really sad about Asia. They don't have like the same kind of rubbish system that we do, and they don't recycle, and a lot of the rubbish they just
Hmm.
burn or they just throw it. And you look, you see on
Yeah.
TikTok, oh, beautiful, like waters. And then you get there and you look at it and there's plastic bottles floating everywhere and there's crisp packets. And it's so sad to see. And I think that like really shocked me. And it does make it like, yeah, less enjoyable. And also, for example, Canggu, which I'm in now, it's very, very touristy, and the rate at which everything is being built is just crazy. So there is building work everywhere, like all around my hostel, everywhere you walk, there's just building work, there's hammering, there's just going on all the time. So it's not really like pristine and peaceful, it's actually very like busy and noisy, and there's like there's no pavements or anything either, and you have to
Yeah.
watch where you walk because there's like big holes in the ground, and yeah, just things like that. And then something, yeah, definitely with the Philippines, that was kind of Instagram versus reality, that I did a TikTok on this as well, because there's just so many travel days, and I think that's something I found harder, like as a solo traveler. Some days in the Philippines you'll just be traveling all day because you're trying to get between the islands, or you have to get from one end of the island to the other end. And for example, like you'll book like a bus or a coach, not realizing, oh, it's going to be full of locals, and you're having to stop every 10 minutes to drop locals off, to pick up school children, to take a package somewhere. And it's just the weirdest experience. And all you see, I feel, for the Philippines is like, oh, the beautiful water, the lovely beaches, which is really, really nice. But in between all of that, you're like, well, I'm sat on a coach for 7 hours, or yeah, I'm sat on a ferry with no aircon all day. And it's just,
Yeah.
you don't really like see that side of it. Actually, to get to these places, they're quite hard to get to. They're not that well connected.
That's definitely something I always encounter as well. You end up spending half
Yeah,
your travel day sat on a coach, and especially when you go to certain countries as well, even though they look fairly small because they're so long and because of the mountains and roads,
yeah.
it
I
takes
just
twice as
remembered
long as
where
you
I
could
was talking
possibly
about in
envision it. And
Vietnam. It's Halong Bay, which is supposed to be beautiful. And it
oh
was
yes,
nice, but I just wasn't overly impressed. And there was rubbish. Like you'd just look out the side of the boat and it'd be floating all along the,
wow.
which is so sad.
It's one thing I kind of noticed as well when I was like out in China or Thailand,
Mm,
everywhere apart from say Japan and South Korea, the infrastructure there just isn't there because a lot of it is so rural. But as you mentioned, there it's getting more and more westernized because of this huge influx in
yeah,
tourism and foreign investment. So in time, it is a shame when you see all these wonderful, wonderful
yeah,
locations and there's just plastic everywhere. Uh, yeah,
yeah, it's
that's
sad.
our existential crisis that the world's going on. It is, but hopefully in time, it could improve. But not to end it on a downer. But this has been really insightful, and
Yeah.
it just sounds like you've had a wonderful experience, and I'm hoping that your travel bug sticks with you and you carry on going. I'd love to hear that you're dieting, all over the place around Europe, Dubai, Australia. You never know where else you might go, and yeah, with fitness, as we mentioned, that industry is booming around the world. I think as well because tourism and expats are taking
Mm.
it so many places as well.
Yeah.
So you never know, might be hearing more from you. But thank you so much for being on the
Thank you. Yeah,
show,
it's been
Alex. I've
good.
really, really enjoyed talking to you.
Ah.
But before I let you go, I've got my little quick fire questions that I like to ask everyone. And don't think about it too much. Whatever comes to your mind first. So let's take it back to before going out there in the first place. Try not to
Hmm.
answer with "don't break your wrist." But what advice would you give Alex before you went on your adventure?
You don't need to plan everything, except if you're in the Philippines.
More than fair. And next question. You mentioned obviously you had your little bit of a panic attack and breakdown about packing your suitcase before going out in the first place, and then coming back, getting your bag. But was there an item or something that you forgot that you really regretted not shoving in your bag?
That's really difficult. Probably bug spray with DEET, because they don't sell that here, and the other ones don't really work.
Very practical. Um, You've been around, you've been in your tour groups, you've kind of darted around from country to country. Have you picked up a phrase that you've been saying frequently and has become a favourite
A
phrase?
phrase.
Yeah. Or any
No, but
sayings?
I am trying to learn other languages, but it's not going very well so far because I keep forgetting everything. And there's a lot of Dutch people in Bali, so they've been trying to teach me Dutch, but the only thing I seem to be able to remember is umbrella, which is parapluie, and that's the only thing I can remember.
I mean, I suppose
Yes,
it's useful when the
exactly.
rain
That's how I've
comes.
remembered it, but I'm
Should you
not sure
bump
I'm
into
going to
any
be
more
using it
Dutch?
every day.
Okay. Well, useful. So, a lot of people, and as I can see, you're an earpod girl. Is there a song that has been on your playlist non-stop that reminds you of home
Oh
or gets you
gosh,
through the
these
day?
are really difficult questions. Mm, Not a song, but I've really been enjoying listening to the Fred again Boiler set. You know, Boiler Room, his set from London.
Yeah.
Is really good because basically my second cousin in Australia, he's like very into like house music, like DJs, and we kind of like similar music. And we were listening to that like in the summer when I was there in January. Like he'd be doing a barbecue and we'd have it on like while the sun's setting. So I've kind of been listening to that like
Yeah.
when I'm away, and yeah, it's just really good. And if I'm tired, it wakes me up as well. So
What was the moment during your trip so far that you've kind of stopped and reflected on your journey and just said to yourself, I've done
oh,
it?
I don't know. Maybe I need to do more. It hasn't come
Or has
yet.
it not come yet?
It hasn't come yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, it's still
it's.
time.
Do you know what? It's hard to take it all in, and it's hard to appreciate it all. And like, I'm going through it, and I am enjoying it, but at the same time, a little part of me's like, oh, but I do kind of miss home, and I do kind of miss my friends, and actually, it's trying to just live in the moment and think, actually, they'll all still be at home. They're all going to be doing the same thing. And when I get home, I'll be missing being here. So it's trying to just appreciate it at the
Yeah.
time and just take in every day. But it is really hard.
You never know. That moment's going to come. And I guarantee you it'll be in
Mm.
that last week as well before you get on that flight home. Okay. So we're talking about you're going to Australia, going to New Zealand, potentially going to Thailand. When you come home, this could be thinking way in advance, but what country is on your bucket list that you have to go see?
Oh, I know this. I want to go to Japan, but
Wonderful.
apparently it's quite expensive. And I also want to go to Egypt and go diving.
Uh, but
But I also need that. I think that might be expensive too.
maybe yes, but I mean, but both stunning and Japan, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been there, loved it, and Egypt, I've heard wonderful things from tourists, but both fantastic, fantastic answers. But Alex, again, thank you so much for being on the show and spending your time with me. And I just happy travels the rest of your journey, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to the Tales from Travellers podcast to stay up to date on past and future episodes. I'm always looking to share new stories from expats and repats from all over the world. So please reach out if you'd like to share your story. You never know, your story could be the one that helps someone make that life-changing choice. You can find us on Instagram at Tales from Travellers. I'd love to hear your story, and more importantly, I'd love to share it with the world. I look forward to hearing from you, but thanks again for joining me. And until next time, happy travels.